Welcome to the product presentation for Rifidi. Rifidi is a comprehensive business process and development tool specifically created for building RFID applications. The goal of Rifidi is to design, visualize, and then develop an RFID business process without the heavy investment in infrastructure and technology that's usually required. Rifidi is about making business processes work and thinking about the business first and the technology later. However, Rifidi is also a simulation environment aimed at giving you a close approximation of the technology. The devices in Rifidi function exactly like real RFID devices and thus give you a platform for learning and development. Rifidi also incorporates a full 3D graphics engine and an advanced physics engine to give a better sense of realism to the process. So let's take a look at Rifidi and see what it can do. Rifidi is based on Eclipse, and as you see here, there's two main perspectives. There's a design perspective and a runtime perspective. The designer mode is for setting up all aspects of the process, and the runtime mode puts it into action. In the designer mode, you first start by looking at the required elements for this particular process, which is usually defined by a business process analyst. So that's done simply by doing a validate, and the validate highlights the parts of the process that need to be filled out before this process can be run. This part is what's known as the box producer. This produces the items for the scene. This is a push arm, which will actually cause actions and do some business logic in the scene. And these are snap points where readers are attached to the scene. So as you see here, until these three are filled out, you can't proceed any further. So let's start filling these out. The first thing we want to do is generate data for the whole scene. And that's done with a tag view. The tag view starts off with tag batches, which basically represent batches of tags. We have a tag wizard that helps you generate tags that you want. So let's start off by generating some DoD tags. And let's just generate about 20 of them. As you see here, the tags are generated, and they also have a grouping, which are later used for business rules. So let's go ahead and select a different group for some of these so that we can essentially create exception cases for some of these tags. There we go. We've created a few that are in group 2, which are exception cases for tags. Now, as you see here, we have this data set available for us. We move this data set to the item generator, and now we have items that will be generated with this data associated to it. Let's go back to validate. And now we have two other things left. The next thing to configure is our push arm, which is an action device. And the push arm now is where we set up some business rules. This will eventually have a scripting engine so that you can do more complex business rules. And at some point, when edge servers and other functionality are available, you will actually be able to do everything like you would in a real development process. So let's first say that everything in group 1 should be pushed on to the next step and to the conveyor process. And the final thing we need to take care of is the reader itself. So we go in here, we add a new reader. And this brings up a reader wizard where we can select among some of the popular readers that have already been emulated. Let's start with an alien. And leave the defaults and create it. And here you see a visualization of the antenna of the alien reader. Essentially at this point, you now have the scene ready to go. So let's look at the reader and actually start the reader, the essential aspect of plugging it in. And we'll take a pause here to take a look and show you that the reader itself is actually up and running and represents an alien reader. There we go. So right now there are no tags on this alien reader. Let's go back now to the runtime perspective, which is really where all the action happens. If you look here in the runtime perspective, we've essentially got a closer view of things, and we can look at things as they happen. In the runtime perspective now, we essentially hit the play button, which will start the simulation. And the simulation goes. If you look at this one, this first box is of group 2, which means that it should go straight through because it goes right into the garbage area. The next one is group 1, and the other one is group 2 as well. So Group 1 will have a push arm activated for it. Look here. You see that the push arm is activated. Group 2 goes forward, and Group 1 gets activated again. You can look at the different views. And let's go back to this view, and now you can actually pause the simulation. You can essentially pause it right in real time, and now we can interact with the objects. What this lets us do is this essentially lets us create different types of business scenarios. So let's say I want to now stack a few boxes right on top of each other. If you can see here, this is the 2F and 2F right here. Let's start that again, and you see now we have 2 boxes that are stacked and moving forward. Essentially what this lets you do is this lets you mimic different types of business processes. And here we see that it's not tagged because it's going through and it is in red. So these are the type of scenarios that you can really see with Rifidi, and this is meant to go along with a presentation that can then take this forward.